Liverpool fans, let me start with a simple but powerful question that might sound crazy at first. What if the next great center back at Anfield isn't a household name yet, but a name we'll all be chanting in a couple of years if Liverpool get this right? Because right now, there's a name being whispered, then debated, then flat out shouted in elite football circles. And Fabrizio Romano himself has told the world to save the name. That name is Jeremy Jacquet. And the fact that Liverpool are right in the middle of what Romano calls a crazy battle for this player tells us far more about the club's direction, its ambition, and its long-term planning than some fans might initially realize. Let's slow this down and really unpack what's going on here, because this isn't just another transfer rumor floating around social media. This is Fabrizio Romano speaking on DAZN Football, explicitly naming Liverpool as an active participant in a high-stakes race for one of the most highly rated young defenders in Europe. When Romano says Liverpool are calling, that's not fluff, that's not guesswork. That's a signal that serious conversations are happening behind the scenes, and that Richard Hughes and the recruitment team are doing what they're supposed to do, identifying elite-level potential before it becomes unattainable. Jeremy Jacquet is just 20 years old, playing for Rennes, and already being talked about in the same breath as Europe's top young defenders. Chelsea are involved, Bayern Munich are involved, Liverpool are involved. That alone should tell you how highly this player is rated. Big clubs don't waste time or resources on kids unless the upside is enormous. Rennes, fully aware of what they have, are reportedly holding out for around 70 million euros, roughly 60 million pounds. That's a massive fee for a defender with just over 50 senior appearances. And yes, on the surface, that sounds like a gamble, but football at the top level has changed. The real gamble now is hesitation. The real gamble is waiting until everyone knows how good a player is and then complaining that the price is too high. Now let's bring this back to Liverpool's reality, because context is everything. Liverpool's need for center-back depth is no longer theoretical. It's real, it's urgent, and it's been building for months. Giovanni Leone's season-ending ACL injury back in September was a huge blow to the club's defensive rotation. That injury alone stripped away a layer of depth that Liverpool were counting on. Then you add the fact that Marc Guéhi, a long-term target, slipped away to Manchester City. On top of that, Joe Gomez has picked up yet another knock, reinforcing concerns about his long-term availability. And looming over all of this is the unresolved contract situation of Ibrahima Konaté, whose future beyond this season remains uncertain. So when people ask why would Liverpool consider spending 60 million on a 20-year-old, the answer is simple, because Liverpool are planning for what's next, not just patching what's broken today. The Athletic have already reported that the club are not interested in short-term fixes in defense. They're not going to panic buy a stopgap just to get through the next few months. That tells you everything about Arne Slot's project and how closely aligned he is with the sporting department. This is about building a defensive unit that can dominate for years, not weeks.
And when you actually look at Jacquet as a player, you start to understand why Liverpool are willing to enter a bidding war. This isn't just a raw athlete with hype around him. This is a defender whose underlying numbers are genuinely impressive, especially for someone so young. In Liga 1 this season, he ranks in the top percentiles among center backs for chances created, non-penalty expected goals, successful passes, aerial duel success, blocks, recoveries, and overall duel success rate. That combination matters. Liverpool don't just want someone who can head the ball and make last-ditch tackles. They want a center back who is comfortable stepping into midfield, breaking lines with passes, carrying the ball forward, and contributing to the team's attacking structure. Think about how Liverpool have historically evolved at center back. Virgil van Dijk wasn't just a defender, he was a system definer. He allowed Liverpool to play higher, press more aggressively, and dominate territory. Konaté brought physicality and recovery speed. Now imagine adding a young defender like Jacquet, who blends defensive reliability with on-the-ball intelligence into that mix over the next few seasons. That's not reckless spending, that's strategic succession planning. Of course, there are risks. Nobody sensible is denying that. Paying 60 million pounds for a 20-year-old with limited top-level experience is a leap of faith. But Liverpool have been here before. When the club spent big on Van Dijk, people questioned the fee. When they invested heavily in Alisson, eyebrows were raised. When they moved early for players before their peak, it often paid off because Liverpool backed their scouting, their analytics, and their development pathway. The club doesn't make these decisions lightly, especially after a summer where nearly £450 million were invested across the squad. What makes this situation even more interesting is Romano's suggestion that this deal could be agreed outside the traditional January window timeline. In other words, Liverpool might not need to rush this before the deadline next week. There's a possibility of groundwork being laid now, with an agreement reached for the spring or early summer. That's smart. That's controlled. That's Liverpool operating from a position of clarity rather than desperation. And here's the part that should genuinely excite Liverpool fans. If Konate does end up leaving in the summer, Liverpool will not be scrambling. They won't be reacting after the fact. They'll already have a plan in place. Jacquet could be that plan. A defender who arrives not as an emergency signing, but as part of a deliberate evolution of the backline under Arne Slot. That's how top clubs stay at the top.
There's also a wider message here about Liverpool's standing in European football. Despite inconsistent form this season, despite questions about Champions League qualification, despite rivals making noise in the transfer market, Liverpool are still in these conversations. They're still one of the clubs that elite young talents consider a destination. When Romano says Liverpool are involved alongside Bayern and Chelsea, that's respect, that's relevance, that's proof that Anfield remains a magnet for players who want to compete at the highest level. So yes, this is a crazy battle. Yes, the price is eye-watering, and yes, there are no guarantees. But if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, this is exactly the kind of move Liverpool need to be exploring. It shows ambition without panic. It shows belief in youth development, and it shows that the club has learned from recent frustrations in the market, where waiting too long has meant missing out. As we sit here today, nothing is done. Jacquet is still a Rennes player. Other clubs are circling. The fee is high. But the fact that Liverpool are calling, monitoring, and positioning themselves in this race should give fans confidence. This club is thinking ahead. This club is planning for sustainability. And this club is determined not to be left behind in another crucial defensive rebuild. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you back Liverpool paying big money for a 20-year-old center back like Jeremy Jacquet? Or do you think the club should focus on a more established name? Do you see this as a smart long-term investment or an unnecessary risk? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like the video, subscribe to RedView Update, and stay locked in because this story feels like it's only just getting started.